Major League Journeyman, right after Brad Guzan decided to join the pod, what did we do? We followed it up with an absolute banger. We got Ned Grabavoy coming from the Pacific Northwest to talk about your favorite number 10, Evander. And he's got a lot to say, as we all do. Let's jump in. Major League Journeyman, we have an all-star with us today, Ned Grabavoy. No, it is not Dax McCarty. Dax McCarty gets enough goddamn flowers around here. This is not the Dax McCarty Retirement Tour podcast, as many of you have rightfully pointed out over the past couple of weeks. Gordo has done nothing in preparation to get us to this point outside of getting us this chat with Ned. He finally provided something. Alan, let me publicly thank you for, at this point, 71 episodes into the pod, for finally providing anything of substance. And it's not even you.
First of all, don't call me Alan ever again. That makes me cringe. But I'm glad to have my old buddy Ned. We just had Brad Guzan, our old roommate. We were chatting about it. So many funny stories. Maybe we can get into in a little bit. But
getting the old band back together. Back to back.
Right. But Ned was the ringleader, man. He was the man in charge. As he is now with the Timbers, he is always the man in charge with all the ideas.
The man with the plan, Ned. I can only imagine what it was like trying to wrangle those two gorillas to get anything accomplished. Literally anything. Can we start there? Like, yeah, what did that look like?
Look, first of all, thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me on. And as you know, during a busy time of year, I often don't get a chance sometimes to just, go on to things like this, have a little bit of fun as well. So I actually appreciate it. Gordy, to give him credit as well, he chased me down at a Colorado Rapids game. That was an important one for us at halftime after we missed like 4 breakaways and threw this on me. And I was so beaten down. I was like, you know what? I'll just go on there and do it. Just tell me when. So I'm happy to be here. But yeah, one
of the few regrets you have in life, right, Ned?
yeah, one of the few. But Gordy's got to share some of the well, we called him El Guzano at the time because he was Chivas USA. And yes, we did all live in one house together in Redondo Beach. And there's a lot of stories, some for the air, probably some not for the air as well, but
most not for the air.
That was a period in an era in MLS soccer that we all got to live through, which was quite a bit different. I think, Dax, you're the only one that stuck with it. It's changed a lot, as you know.
Ned, I just remember the two things that I remember. I remember how, Dax, maybe you can tell us about El Guzano, how he is now. Okay. Because he's got a ton of money, but he had the best contract of all of us. Ned was Project 40. I think you were making like what, 45 grand, Ned, back then? Your first contract?
Probably max,
right? I was on like 24
after your 75% start bonus.
Yeah, and then Kyle Veras wanted to come live with us.
Veras, wow, what a name! Good.
And he was on 12.5. He was on a, what do they call it?
Junior developmental. I was on the same thing. Yeah.
And we're like, and Brad was on like 75 grand, right? He had.
By the way, hold on, just for clarity's sake, 12.5 pre-tax. Pre-tax.
That comes out to like.
I don't even know how you tax that. How do you even tax that?
I think it comes out to 12.2.
and dude, it's like $300 a paycheck. And so he's like, we had this room, right? It was the laundry room, and we just converted it into a bedroom for Guzan, and he's massive. And like he said on the pod, he'd have to sit on the bed to close his door, actually. There was no space in between. And we're like, Brad, can you're making good, like the best money out of all of us. Can you move upstairs to a room and pay like
more,
$550 instead of $300? And he was like, no. And we're like, dude, Veras is gonna have to spend his whole check. He would not move. And we used to play Tiger Woods. And the loser would have to drive to go get ice cream. And he He refused to get everybody. He would lose, and he refused to get everybody in his car. And the ice cream store was literally less than a mile away because he didn't want to spend the gas money. You can't make this shit up.
Two things about Guzan, and Dax, you know this because you're a teammate of his. First of all, unbelievably authentic person. Wouldn't change anything about him. Extremely frugal with his money, one, which is why he has more money probably than all of us combined.
Yep.
And second is he's a little bit of a sore loser. He did not like to lose at Tiger Woods. He didn't like to lose at cards. He didn't like having to drive us while we sat in the back over to get ice cream that he had to pay for.
And talk shit to him the whole time.
That's what we were playing for.
He's an unbelievable
I'll pay,
sore
but I'm
loser.
not driving.
He's an unbelievable
You're gonna lose
sore
all the
loser.
time, don't play, or come up with a new game.
Yeah.
And now, at this point in his career, let's just say the purse strings are still tight, but when you live in a castle, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. Good for him.
Is 22, is that still going around teams? Did you guys used to play 22 on your teams? Remember 22?
All the time.
Is it still going around?
Still a thing. 22 is big. 22 is big in Nashville. They play it all the time, every flight.
I love to hear that.
Not so much in Atlanta.
Dax, how much in 22 in the game, and it's a game we know well, but others might not. How much cheating do you think was going on in that game, if any?
Honestly, not that much. Not that much.
He must have some bets out there.
Honest guys in Nashville, I gotta say. Honest guys.
Okay. Good to hear.
Ned, let's talk about the Timbers a little bit, because as is your technical title, everyone uses a different one. Are you the GM, the sporting director? What is your official role?
GM last time I checked, Dan, but they could have changed that in the last 30 minutes. So
Okay.
I'll get you an update when we hop off the call.
So you get to oversee everything. Wanted to start off with arguably your most successful player, a phenomenal signing, phenomenal player, Evander, who is going through an emotional finish to the season. He comes out, makes some statements via Twitter, somewhat doubled down on it on another podcast somewhere else, and I wouldn't be able to provide that name. But I wanted to ask first, because we've been in locker rooms. This is now taking place essentially outside the locker room. I'm assuming the first team's not training anymore, which maybe that's the wrong assumption. But how are you dealing with that, with kind of this stuff swirling after a tough exit, after a tough playoff loss?
Yeah, and I think, you guys probably had seen that there was some, press conference, and it's been addressed publicly as well. And when you're in this role, that there's going to be a lot of different things to manage. And things can also quickly change, direction at times, and sometimes you also feel blindsided. I think, to your point, look, it's undeniably one of the most talented players in the league. It's why he had, the season that he did, and one of the reasons why, the attack that we had this past season was so potent, with him sort of pulling the strings, and running point on that. So I can't say enough about how talented of a player he is. I actually think he's a good person. I really do. I think the sport's changed a lot, Dan. I think now when you look at, and Dax, from some of the players that have been brought into Atlanta and some of the players you've seen, move on, the business side and the global transfer market is also completely different. And I think you've got a league now where there's a lot of high-level teams that are also focused with looking at some of the better players in this league. And so I think it draws interest, and there's a level of intrigue for Evander personally, I believe, which he's obviously stated publicly, to be interested in that. And I understand that. I won't shy away from, I don't think that moment was managed well. I think if we could go back in time, hopefully he probably realizes it well, that there was a level of emotion that went into it. And at least in that moment, it probably shouldn't have been such a focus on the individual situation or his personal situation, which we've tried to manage, over the last, 3 or 4 months. But he's going to continue to have high interest from around the world, while he's under contract with us. Those things I understand, but at the same time, I'm hopeful that we can work together on what's best for both our club, in all honesty, and for him personally. When he's in a good frame of mind and he's motivated and he's playing, he's one of the best players in the league. I truly think that.
For sure.
That's why we signed him. That's why we committed to him. But I think right now, we can't also be completely unrealistic that it leaves us in a little bit of a question mark of, where are we going from here and what's next for both parties.
Well, Ned, I've gone back and forth with the Journeymen on this. I've gone back and forth with Gordo on this. I've gone back and forth with Dan on this. And we are staunchly on two separate sides of the fence. So all of us have played with some absolutely fantastic players. League winners, mercurial talents, attacking talented players. And I think we can all agree that those guys who you bring in, they are worth the price of admission. And once they have shown that, and once they've shown that in providing numbers, goals, assists, exciting moments, like moments for fans to get out of their seat, they put themselves in a different stratosphere. And we all of us agree when this situation happened that Evander, he handled it in the wrong way. And you air out dirty laundry, you go public with things after an emotional game. It doesn't do anyone any good. And so we were all in agreement with that opinion. Now, where I differed from these guys was I said, listen, it is an emotional moment. And I think as some of the top decision makers at a club, it's incumbent upon you to try to manage that situation, see if there is a bridge that can be mended, and see if that bridge, that fence can be mended and not totally broken. Because at the end of the day, he's a wonderful player, and you already know what you have in him. And so if that can be managed, we need to try to manage it, and we need to try to bring him back. And they are of the opinion that, nope, that is a bridge too far. He's completely thrown the club under the bus, the people that work at the club under the bus, and that's not acceptable. And we need to try our best to move on from that. Now, of course, I know you're going to have to manage this answer a little bit because you don't want to tip your hand, but I'm saying you try to bring a guy like that back if he's willing to work with you, if he's willing to say, hand up, I apologize for what I said. I want to try to make it work at this club if you guys will still want to make it work. And I think you should absolutely try to mend that fence and bring him back. They're not of that opinion. Where do you stand on this?
Yeah, I think, Dax, everything you're saying is accurate. I can't disagree with anything that you said. And I also think I'm in a position where I essentially serve as a representation of the club and the decision-making process. If I didn't think he was a good person, if I didn't think he was a great player, we're probably not even having this conversation. Right. I think I was pretty clear, at the end of the season that there's definitely some things that would need to take place in order to try to rectify where we're at and ultimately move forward together. But without question, first, what I would say is I've said that I'd be open to doing that. I don't control all of that. That is the truth, right? But ultimately, we've got a very, very good player that's performed well. And part of the reason is what you pointed to is the reasons why we signed him, because we knew we were going to get production. We knew we were going to get some of these special DP level moments and price of admission. Like you said, you want to pay an MLS, you want to pay to go watch a guy like that. So he has all that, and it's undeniable, but there's a lot of other things that have to line up, in order for us to all move forward together. In terms of, where they're at with some of this, Dax, I felt like the season had ended in a very bad way, in an emotional way for everyone. We had to get through what we needed to get through the next couple of days. And then ultimately, I did think that there needs to be a little bit of time away for them to really think about what is next. And as I said before, there's been interest from other leagues. There's been interest from some big teams. I think that they'll probably continue to at least, look to explore that world. And as I said before, too, we have to look to do what's best for us as a club. And I think when we're trying to build something and have stability, we have to also look at who are the players that are going to provide that for us, not just short term, but long term as well. So there's no reason to sugarcoat anything. That's the situation and position that we're in. But I do trust myself and the people around me that we'll have good communication and we'll continue to try to move forward with what's the best direction.
Ned, you're I guess a young GM is what we could call you. You're also an experienced GM in the seat and the club that you've been with for a while now. You've changed the complexion, in my estimation, in my opinion, for the product on the field. And you take a big step in bringing in Neville. You guys are producing on the offensive side of the ball in incredible ways, right? Breaking records with 3 players producing in unheard of ways in MLS history. When you think about the overall complexion, and this is more about your direction as a club, when you go to sleep at night, because this is where Gordo and I come back to, how personal is it to you that as the steward to really kind of bring a teammate along? Because in a lot of ways, like you as a GM, the head coach, the ownership, like let's be honest, we're all teammates in this, right? Everybody wants, I think, the same kind of thing, to win and to put forth the best product possible. Coming off a loss, it hurts everybody, it stings everybody, but everybody, you would hope, wants the best. And now you're in a position where you're making a massive decision, not you, but the club as a whole is making a massive decision after having stacked a lot of bricks. Personally, difficult for you, no matter how you slice it.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think the season's going to end at some point for every team in the league, right? And then every team in the league and every person and counterpart that's sitting in a seat somewhere in my position has a lot to navigate in the offseason, a lot, including the teams that are going to end up in MLS Cup and general managers and sporting directors trying to figure out, which 2 of the 5 players that they love the most that they can't keep anymore
right
have to go, right? So they're just different challenges that exist everywhere. And yeah, I think it's pretty clear that in terms of, this individual player and DP level player, it presents a unique challenge to us as a club. I do trust our ability to navigate these things. I really do. Yeah. Is it unfortunate? Yes, it is. To your point, Dan, do we all want to try to go in the same direction? We do. And that's probably the hardest part of the job, to be honest with you. When you've got 50, 60 players and staff trying to have everybody, as many as you can, closely aligned on what is the vision and where are we actually going. Mm-hmm. There's big challenges with that. And look, sometimes the hardest, the biggest decisions obviously are the hardest ones to make. And you could probably make a case on both sides. People that are following along, fans, pundits, they probably will do that. We'll approach it the way that we do with everything. We'll take all the information that we have. We'll sit down with key leadership to look at where we're at as a club, how we move forward, and what's best for the club. Like I said, not just short-term, long-term. To your point, you're talking about a group that's been assembled with an attack that was one of the best in MLS throughout the course of the season. I love that because that's how we want to play, and that's a part of what the vision is. But I sure as shit would rather be further in the playoffs right now, like someone else on this call, and maybe saying, we didn't score as many goals as we wanted either. So I think all of us in how competitive we are would probably trade off winning and winning consistently for a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Something we have to think about.
Yeah, it's a tough position to be in, Ned, and it's crazy to see you sitting in the seat, just knowing you as a young player. And it's probably why, it's definitely the reason why I will never be in a GM position, because I would take some of this shit, personal, and want to go fight somebody and fire somebody. But you have the responsibility of not only yourself, but there's, the club, the fans, the organization, the owners to look out for and do what's best for everybody. It's well answered. And, you guys didn't start off, the season in a totally in a smooth way either with the hiring of Phil Neville, right? Is the fans were boisterous about that. Here's something else that we spoke about is, we want our fans. You guys have one of the best fan bases in the league, and probably around the world. If you want to give it that credit, and I would.
I would for sure.
how do you balance, because there's occasions where fans come out and they're sick and tired of what's going on. We knew the Chris Klein thing. I was there in LA when they were raising signs and asking for his head and all that kind of stuff. Where's the balance between doing what you believe and hiring a coach specifically? The fans are against it, and you want the fans' support, obviously, because they're paying money, they're paying admissions and helping the club survive. You need them. Where's that balance between listening to the fans and doing what you think is right with the club? And how hard was that scenario and situation for you to navigate through?
Yeah, once again, big decisions, right? And I think when you put the level of time and energy into that hiring process that we did, I felt very comfortable that once our fan base and supporters group would get to actually know the person, what they're about, what they stand for, their morals, how they work, I think they would saw, what I saw and what others saw, which is someone that can lead, and someone that's got incredible work ethic, and so I would say, Gordy, with that, I was a little bit surprised at how much of a reaction there was, in all honesty. But what I would say is, and you guys said it too, this is a fan base that's incredibly passionate and engaged, far deeper than just soccer and the sport and on the field. Yep. It's what I say it all the time, and people can say it's cheesy, whatever. I was a part of that first free agency class, and it's what drew me to this market because it was different. It felt different than what I knew for most of my career in MLS. And a big part of it wasn't about playing time. I just wanted to end and be somewhere else that was different and unique. And so I would rather be in a place where we've got fans that are super engaged, super passionate. There's obviously supportive of the club, but they also want to try to hold, the club accountable in some ways. There's a reason why I continue to love what I do, even through the most stressful moments, because I know when we're going to show up on a weekend match, we're going to have a stadium here full of people that are enthusiastic, and thrilled to cheer on a team.
Yeah, dude.
Pressure is a privilege. It's well said. It's well said.
Yeah, well, I remember.
That's not on your own, coach. You had to have gotten that from somewhere.
Gordo didn't come up with that.
Is that a Gordyism?
No, absolutely
no,
not.
Dude. That was on the bathroom stall when he was taking a shit this morning at Denny's. That environment, though, Ned. I remember when we moved. Moved to Toronto, TFC, and first saw the league was changing. Right, the league was tweaking in a different way, and there was that passionate response from the fans and from or for the club. Dude, that's why you play. That's why you sit in the seat that you do. It's for the day-to-day, because people give a shit about what you're doing and the decisions that you're making. I think you said it spot on in you trust your group and you trust your process to make the right decision. So there's always going to be outside noise, especially about major decisions, major signings, because the institutional knowledge is not just within the building, right? Everyone thinks that they have all the answers and are invested in knowing how they can do your job, Ned, and others' job, but trusting your group and trusting your team, that's a great place to be in. What I would like to ask is, we've talked about Evander and we've talked about Phil Neville, but specifically we also have talked about your responsibility in your job and being able to see everything as a general manager. What are you most excited about within the Timbers organization? Because I think that it is a high profile job. It is a high profile club. It is renowned, certainly in MLS and this country, but now putting up numbers, from an offensive standpoint, from being able to potentially spend how you guys are spending on DPs, potentially selling how you're selling in the future. What are you most excited about within the organization since you've been in the chair that you're in?
Yeah, and if you remember as well, I was in a few other roles before this,
right?
And been the club for a little bit, probably over 8 years or so. So it's been interesting to watch Portland's evolution. but it's also part of an evolution of MLS's evolution as well, right? A bigger part of it. And I think for me, I mean, look, it's professional sports. There's pressure to win. We have to win games. We want to be competing in the playoffs. We want to be trying to do that consistently. So that has to be first and foremost, right? But I do think that there's a number of areas where I've seen a ton of progress at the club, over the last handful of years. I believe we've got such experienced staff that are great in terms of how they collaborate and how they work together, processes that we have, how we're continuing to improve everything that we do with the operation and how we're functioning behind the scenes. That's all the non-sexy stuff, right? That's not the free kick goals that Evander's scoring and the goals that Jonathan Rodriguez is adding in and some of the other players' special moments and results that ultimately mean the most. But for me, I feel really, really good about the large group of people that we have working here together to try to put that in place.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, that's key because even in the toughest moments, ending the season the way that we did, brutal, like the lowest of my career. Player, front like low, like middle of the game low, not losing on like a PK.
Dax said, whoa, like you've had a ton of really tough moments in your career.
No, I mean, because as a player, you have, of course, you have tough moments. I'm sure as a GM, you live those moments just the same. I mean, Ned, I wanted to ask you, like, is it
I would
worse?
Say maybe even more so, right?
I was going to say, is it worse for you,
game.
Ned? Is it worse for you not being on the field, being able to affect anything, and sitting up there being like, I made these decisions for these pieces to go into place, and now I can't do anything about it. This is what we have, and I have no effect on it anymore.
Yeah, I think it's two things, right? Like, one, there is a soccer game that's played. Like, let's not forget that. Yeah. Like, there are players in the field that play a game, right? And there's a result at the end. So, like, some of it we have to say in that moment, in that game, we did not perform well, right? That we didn't get it done. We didn't perform well. And as the game played out, in some ways, we actually went further into a shell than standing up and fighting back. Now, we did that in 90% of the rest of the season with what we saw from the group. And I feel like that's why, I was blindsided in a lot of ways. Now, to the low point thing, you're a player, and it's a little bit in those moments, it is kind of about you and your teammates, your group, your team. And so I think in my position, it's even bigger than that. It's like on an organizational level where I'm like, that was like rough. Like I just, it feels awful. Right now, having said that, you got to wake up the next morning and you literally got to get right back in there, and you've got to get back to it. So you don't have time to sit there too much and dwell on one match and what if we did this and what if that wouldn't have happened. For me, we've got to continue to look forward. I saw progress and some building blocks put in place this year with a new with a first-year head coach here in Portland and a lot of new staff. And I think we've got to try to build on that. Easier said than done. Everyone's going to go out this offseason and try to become stronger. Dax, you've seen a lot of change over the last 12 months and throughout your career as well. And so, these are the challenges that we all have, but it's also why we do it or why we stay in it. Because it can be incredibly rewarding if you get it right, what you guys know.
I mean, look, I have no doubt that with the work that you guys have done and some of the players you guys have brought in, that you will reload and retool. I mean, there's no question in my mind about that. I want to lighten it up a little bit, Ned. I want to take you back to post MLS Cup 2013. Team Hotel. You might not remember this. Two strapping young midfielders ran into each other. One was getting off an elevator. The other was getting on an elevator. And they had a 20, 25-minute conversation. They were both a little tuned up, which is fair enough. Me, I'm one of those guys because I was knocked out of the playoffs long before that with our perennial Red Bull capitulation in the playoffs. And so I was in Kansas City for appearances. You were there fighting for a trophy, trying to win your third MLS Cup, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if you remember this conversation. Do you remember we ran into each other in this hotel room? Or
Gordy,
in this hotel?
Gordy, how's my memory?
I mean, I don't know. I think it's pretty good compared to me.
Of course,
Clearly, you don't remember.
It's all relative.
Of course, I remember. Of course, I remember.
Okay.
First, I thought when you said you wanted to lighten up, I thought you were going to say, "Look, I want to play one more year. Will you just sign me to a contract?" Hey, listen,
Well, I don't know how many.
You don't know what's going to happen with Evander. Just give me that contract for a year.
Hey,
Right?
how many mid-30s center mids can you afford to carry on your roster?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'd be able to justify that one, but no.
Dude, we brought on Dax. You and Chara would be over 100, I think, together.
That game in Kansas City, and you remember that weekend? It was like
Horrible.
Yeah, like minus 30.
It was frigid, right? PKs, right?
Yeah, like not real cold. In the entire game, the way that it played out in typical MLS fashion, right? We always say like, "Oh, it was crazy," and it's like, no, that was just MLS. Like it happens pretty much every other game. But brutal loss. I do remember that, Dax. I can't remember how upset you were, where you were at that point in your career, but certainly you were destined to probably go on and do, bigger and better things. I would actually take a moment, since I'm always getting asked the questions. I would like to just ask you, why have you continued so long? What's driven you and motivated you to continue to want to do that? Because first of all, it's a freaking grind.
Yeah.
And we all know that. I got to a point, and I'll be honest, it's like Friday night, I just want to have a freaking cheeseburger and drink a beer. I don't want to think about having to like run and defend for some of the more talented players. And like, I just was over it. So I'd be interested just to hear from you, like, what has driven you to continue to want to play?
It's a great question.
Besides the money keeps going up.
Yeah. First of all, I'm not smart enough to do anything else, so I need that paycheck.
Dax's money is going down. He's the only one that's going. He's going like.
Yeah. Honestly, dude, it's a good question, and I think for me, it's kind of like this never-ending pursuit of like this. It's kind of cliche to say, but me versus me, like this battle with myself to say like you can still do it at the top level, no matter how many times they try to replace you, no matter how many times you fall off in the playoffs. You can still play at a high level and you can still get that elusive MLS Cup. And I think trophies, I mean, that's the reason why you play the game, is to win trophies. And sometimes I think people can like maybe overvalue them a little bit when assessing a player's career. But like, I'd be lying if I said that pursuit of MLS Cup didn't haunt me, because I have been to one MLS Cup. 2010, we lost to Colorado Rapids in Toronto. And getting there, and I lost an Open Cup back in 2007 with Dallas. Getting there, only two big trophy seasons in 5 years, that was a wake-up call for me. And that was like, hey, man, like these opportunities don't come around often. So when you're on these good teams and when you're pursuing these accomplishments, like you need to really understand what you're going through. And like you guys have all won MLS Cup here, and you know how validating that feels. And so for me, like I'm really proud of everything I've accomplished in my career and maybe the legacy I'll leave behind. But like there's still a small part of me that's like, dude, you need that validation. You need that validation of an MLS Cup to be considered in the stratosphere of a Chara, of a Kyle Beckerman, of a Shalri Joseph. Like even though Shalri didn't win an MLS Cup, like I still look at him as like the mecca of defensive midfielders in this league. So there's a little bit of just chasing validation, and there's also a little bit of like this I guess unrealistic self-belief that like I can still play at a high level and I can still do it well. And this year's been a massive wake-up call for me in terms of being on the bench way more than I ever have in my whole career. And that fight between, dude, be a good teammate, support your teammates, and also like, screw this. I'm pissed off that we're having a shit season, and I know I can help us. Like that battle is constantly there. And listen, man, honestly, Ned, players like us, we never really needed the athletic ability. We only had it up here, buddy. No disrespect. Maybe you could run a 4.340. I don't know. Maybe I'm off in that assessment.
Ned was quick, 1 to 5 yards. One of the quickest 1 to 5.
Who likes to run?
Yeah,
Hit with
exactly.
a freaking ball.
Ned,
Dax,
that's the only thing I had, dude.
yeah, Dax, look, so we got Atlanta United. It feels like a different Atlanta United, like than when we think. Like I say
Totally.
that
It
I say
is.
that respectfully, and so like I'm kind of engaged now into the playoffs in the Eastern Conference in a different way. So I'm wishing you all the best,
Thanks.
along with our good buddy Guzan along the way, and then you're doing it because you're ultra competitive. Whatever you're competing against,
Yeah.
that's your thing. I would just say revisit that night in 2013 when you had a few too many drinks, and think about what you've done since then.
Yeah.
And, you probably wouldn't trade much of it. There's a lot of things that happen throughout a career. So,
And
for me to you, just congrats on the longevity in a stellar career.
thanks, buddy. Well, I bring that up. I bring that night up for a specific reason because
I was hoping so.
I don't know. I don't know where you were in your career mentally. I mean, I think you were kind of on the tail end of it. I think you ended up retiring after 2016.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you had started thinking about what comes next, but I remember after our conversation, I remember thinking, because I didn't know you. I don't. We had played against each other a bunch, but we had never really talked. And I remember thinking specifically,
We're fortunate,
Yeah.
fortunate ones.
I remember thinking, Ned Grabavoy, he will work in an MLS front office one day, just from that one conversation. And my question is like, did you know at that moment in time that you wanted to go into a front office and be a GM? Or was it like you didn't know what the hell you were going to do after you played? And then what was like your process? Like if there's a player that is a little bit older and he watches this podcast and you could give a little bit of advice to someone who wants to get into a role that you're doing right now, like how was your process getting into that and what are the steps that need to be taken?
Yeah, it's actually a great question. I didn't know at that time. I mean, obviously, I loved the game, and I probably would say I always wanted to continue to be a part of the game in some way, shape, or form. I knew a couple things. I knew that the era of RSL was coming to an end, and I was a part of that, and probably could see that my days and years there were limited.
Right.
And then like anything, which we all know, like you start to have to go and potentially kind of chase your career and move and then go grab another year somewhere. I got to a point, when I was in Portland about halfway through the year where probably unlike you in some ways, Dax, I was done being able, I think, to compete at the highest level, like 100%. And I didn't want to be a guy who was 70% or 80% into it. I think I had accomplished what I wanted to, or at least at that point in my career. I wasn't going to go on to do bigger and better things. And so I just had this feeling of like, what's next? And the longer I wait, it's just going to slow me from where I want to try to get, personally and professionally next. Now, I would tell you I had a big challenge, and debate with myself over the coaching world or front office world.
Yeah.
I spoke to a handful of people that I really, really trust that had gone through that transition in recent years. I think in speaking to those people, in my inner circle really, really helped me, have some of those opinions to lean on. But I also try to take more time over the next couple of months to try to figure out what was most important, to me and my family. I think where the front office won out was my big debate was, can I have a big impact on the day-to-day at a soccer club if I'm not on the field and I'm not a coach, if I'm not a part of that world? And I think through, thought, and like I said, speaking to a lot of others, I decided that ultimately I could. It may take time to work myself there, but I thought I ultimately could. I'm glad with the decision that I've made. I'm extremely fortunate to have had the opportunities that I've had. I'm extremely fortunate to have worked with a lot of the people that I have as well, because nothing's promised. And then, like anything, I know now what a special opportunity I have. And it's like everyone else that's competing, like, I want to make the most of it for all of us in this organization. And I think that's kind of where that day-to-day impact and drive comes through.
That's awesome, man. That makes so much sense because I've gone through that same process in my head. Coaching, front office, maybe a little bit more on the media side too, because I do enjoy the media stuff. But yeah, man, I decided a long time ago, probably 2 or 3 years ago, after I completed my U.S. Soccer B license course, I was like, the coaching world is not for me. I would love it. I think if a genie could come to me right now and be like, hey man, if we could make you a coach, but you would just have stability in one place, and maybe you're not coaching the first team, maybe it's with the academy or whatever, but you could have that stability, I would probably take it, because I do love the day-to-day on the field, the competitive aspect of it. But that uncertainty and living in that world of like raising a family and maybe having to uproot your kids, I promised my wife I wouldn't do it, because that's not what I want for my family. I want to have roots somewhere to be able to settle down. And that's just kind of the thought process I went through as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of fans that, they can look and it's easy to, but as you guys know, I mean, it's when you're contract to contract and you're questioning where you're going to be, where you're going to live, and you got to take your kids out of school, and like even what the players have now. I mean, they're big life changing and life shifting moments throughout any career, playing and post playing, involved in the sport. And there's a level of stress to that without question.
Yeah.
All right, let's since you're a GM and we're all proud of you, man. It's really crazy, dude. Like it is. I told you this, I think, during halftime, but it's so wild, growing up with people that we knew when we were just young pups, didn't know what was going on, and trying to survive as players, right? And to see a lot of our teammates, including yourself, go in and giving back to the team or to the league. And not only that, holding roles like you are now, power positions in big clubs is really crazy to me, man. So, hey, before we get to your GM game that we're going to play with you, Ned, I always remember Ned was early on. Ned was like one of the best 5v2 players that I had ever seen, because I was always so raw. I don't think I played 5v2 until I got to the pros, and Ned had these like little like classy, cheeky little moves. Who's the best 5v2 player you ever played with?
Wow.
You can say it yourself.
That's a great question. I'm trying to think through.
It's a tough one to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Because I was clearly better than Dax Ned in my career.
I think, it's hard to remember exactly how much, but I look at like the MLS, it just was so different back then. Like you're at one place, then you're on an expansion team, and then like Andrea Pirlo is like walking out to the field for the first time.
Like, was he in 5v2?
Like I'm thinking of players, like global players during long periods of time that like I actually followed, and like, it was kind of like the player you looked at a lot. Like this guy literally like created his own freaking position, like in soccer.
Yeah.
Like he was doing like what all of us wanted to do, which is don't
whatever he wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I can just remember some of the moments early on with him, and it was so like nonchalant, but I'm just going to probably throw his name out there as being someone where I would be a little bit, at least in that type of world, 5v2 world, starstruck, because I was decent, like you said, let's be honest.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go through a series of start, bench, cut, okay? And I'm going to hit you with a Galaxy 3. You got to start one, you got to bench one, you got to cut one. And
any criteria you want to use, you can explain yourself or not. Doesn't matter.
It does not matter. We're going to go early. We're going to go early Galaxy days. Okay, we're going to go Landon, Albright, and Hartman.
I got to go start, on the bench, cut.
Yes, you got to cut one of them, put one of them on the bench.
All right, I'm going to go start Landon.
No brainer.
Bench Hartman and cut Albright. And the only reason I'm cutting Albright is because he loves to argue. And you know what? Like, he's a GM. I'm a GM. I just want to
There's the
argue.
GM rivalry there. I knew
I
it.
want to argue with him.
I love it. See you later. Chris, you're out.
Yeah. Gone.
That's it, dude. That's an easy one. That's just a warm up. Here's a tough one, Ned. You ready? We're going RSL days. You got Beckerman, Finley, Rimando.
Oh, wow.
I think I disagree with this. I think Beckerman, Morales, Rimando would be harder.
That's why we asked Ned, not you.
All right. So which three? I need the three.
Whatever Gargs wants.
What did I say? Beckerman,
Finley, Rimando.
Rimando.
Okay.
I'll say start Beckerman.
No brainer.
Have to start Kyle Beckerman. We're trying to win.
to
Robbie
win.
Finley's on the bench.
Mhm.
Robbie Finley's on the bench because he's going to give us that pace. he's going to give us that off the bench. And Nick's a great friend. I was just with Nick up last month in Salt Lake for a little bit, and I got to cut Nick.
Oh,
Now-
no.
Now, hold on. I'm cutting Nick because he gets so mad and emotional that he would be in there and he would be arguing with the GM at the time, who was Garth Lagerway, and he would get us all new contracts. Nick would get all the players new contracts. So that's my strategy. I'm gonna cut Nick and have him go back in and fight for all the players and get us better contracts.
He's gonna have to get himself a contract first, apparently.
Thinking like
Yeah,
a GM. I love it.
He's
All right.
got to fight for it now.
He's got to fight for it. He's probably willing to do it.
Ned, I've got two for you. One's a bonus at the end, but I could not let you leave here without doing a start bench cut for your NYCFC days. And you know the three. Pirlo, Villa, Lampard. Start bench cut. Save the toughest for last. Look at that grin.
I think it's going to be easier. This is going to be the easiest one.
Nah. Look at him. Look at him. It's already the toughest one. He knows
That's
it.
tough.
I'm gonna start Villa.
Okay.
Start Villa. I'm gonna bench Pirlo for no other reasons because at this point, like, I didn't really want to play either, so I'm on the bench. Like, I want to sit next to Pirlo on the bench and just like kind of bullshit. Like, just maybe just talk about how bad all the starting players are.
You guys, the two of you would have half the Gatorade bottle would be full of a nice red Chianti.
Exactly.
Well, let's hear
And
about
I would cut
Frank.
because I want Frank focused on like dinner and post game stuff. Like, where are we going? I don't want that to get in the way. I need
Love
Frank focused on that.
That's class, man. That's class. Although I will say Pirlo on the bench. Oh, what a player. All right, man, let's get you out of here on this one. You, my friend, we usually ask people this in the beginning of the episode, but we won't even ask you. I'm going to tell you. You are in the Journeyman Club. You're a journeyman. You played for 6 teams. You're a welcome member of the group. LA Galaxy, Columbus Crew, San Jose Earthquakes, Real Salt Lake, NYCFC, Portland Timbers. This is what Wikipedia told me. Is this accurate?
Well, yeah. San Jose was expansion 2000. I don't know if we can count that one.
We have to.
It's like 5. Is that 5.5 or?
That's like 5.5.
We're
Sure.
at Buckshaw.
We got it.
Remember
Buckshaw.
Yeah, of course.
Ned, in the basement at Santa Clara?
Yeah.
Of course
Oh,
we're
yeah.
counting. All right. Ned,
we got to be nice, but yes, yeah, that is accurate. But
we're going power rankings. You have to rank from best team you played for to the worst team you played for, organization, and use it however you want, whether it was
Well, that's tough.
good city, great team, great moment in your career, like whatever, however you want to describe it. I just need you to rank best to worst.
Okay. Hold on, I got to put my GM hat on. Now I'm saying Portland Timbers first.
I knew it.
Portland
I knew it. He's a smart guy.
Salt Lake second.
Yep.
Salt Lake second. Now I'm already losing track of what teams I actually played for. I'll say Galaxy third just because I had Gordy there.
Yeah, of course.
let's be honest. We had a good team. We had a good group. We played more kickball than I think we trained last year, which was also enjoyable. Then from there, I'll go with NYCFC, Columbus, and San Jose in that order.
Boom.
Top to bottom.
Makes sense. I kind of thought it would be around there. I thought you would put Salt Lake first, Portland second, but I get it. The GM it makes sense.
As I get older, I'm learning.
All right, as we do with all of our guests, we always end on this one, and I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, but your answers have been brilliant. We make all of our guests start bench cut the Journeymen. So me, Dax, and Gargs. So go ahead and give us your answer.
And there's a theme here.
Is there a specific time for like during your prime?
No.
Whatever you want.
You do whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
It could be as a person, whoever's the best at drinking beer. It could be, whoever. It could be anything.
Could be the player that played the most like you. Whatever you want.
Anything.
All right, I'm going to say. Wow, this is tough. I'm going to say start Gordy.
That's my boy.
I'm starting Gordy. He didn't probably start much in his career to start with.
Giving handouts.
And I know now, and seeing Dax later in his career, if he's on the bench, we're still going to get leadership, team guy. We're going to get some of those intangibles that we need. Dan, I gotta cut someone. It's the unfortunate life of a general manager. I've got nothing against you.
No, Ned, there's a theme here. There's a theme developing with all our guests.
Every time. He's been cut every time.
Look, you look like, with your background, you look like you have way more to focus on than still being on a team. And I just want you to focus on that. That's why I'm making that decision.
Oh, Ned, you just made our night, man. You made our night.
Thank you.
Brilliant interview.
Thank you.
Ned,
Look at it. Please
what a phenomenal interview until the last 15 seconds. That was, you nailed every question, and then you just completely blew it, and you turned it back over to the guy that closes this thing out. And what else? Nah,
he's hot. He's as mad as Brad Guzan.
Dude, if the polar bear was hot yesterday.
Dan, hold on. I just got an email, and looks like we got more allocation money again this year. We're going to bring it back.
No, I felt like I just got called into Ned's office at the end of the season. That was tough, but you handled it well. So this is, to be fair, not the first time I've been cut, as you can imagine. It's similarly representing my professional career, which is, hurtful and brings up some stings. There's a little PTSD involved, but we're going to be okay. I got a family now. He's
got his therapist on line one.
Yeah.
Well, it's all good. Hey, Ned, listen. We wish you the best, man. Heading into what is shaping up to be a really important offseason, as they all are. But I know that, listening to you talk about your process and about your team in particular, the team that surrounds you in the office for the next couple months, no doubt that the Timbers are going to come out swinging next year. So it's great to see you in the position that you're in as well. Wholly deserved. You not only the time as a player, but I think the passion and intention that you have put into this league for a really long time. I know that Dax, and speak on Gordo's behalf because he can't speak. We commend you, and it's great to see. So keep doing what you're doing, and as a fellow journeyman, we love to see it. So all the best. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us, man. That was brilliant.
Kind words. Happy to be a part of the club, guys. Thanks a lot. I had fun. Appreciate it,
brother.
All right, Ned. Adios, buddy.
All the best, guys.